You gotta see that CC first. Come on, man. Let me do one of the slow motion. You gotta see that CC first. Come on, man. Feeling like a legend in this shit, little nigga, I'm past retro. Never feeling third, little nigga, I'm past guns. I gotta have them all like ass catcher. Shotty break the nigga ribs up like sprinkler. We all steppin', kill you with kindness cause I'm dead nice. That five that judge giving out spot, what you doing like? PS, mean right, that's mean right. We build different, you know the vibe. And we stand in all fitting, we know the rhyme. I keep a 144 because the animals when we flow and rhyme. We back again. Yeah, they said he must smoke it, so we matching them. Everything righteous, so you know when we get back at them, you get hit up with a K, but no acronym.
We are the I.S.U.P.K out of 1 West 125th Street in New York, under commanding General Yohanna. Tonight is our Lashawan Qadash, or Holy Tongue. This is where we come back into the scriptures to get the knowledge, you understand, history of our culture and of our language. All right, I am President Officer Yakad out of the Trinidad camp, and tonight we're going to go through some of the most common verbs, right, or common phrases that we use every day. You understand, especially when it comes to our culture and our language in the ancient Hebrew. Again, like, share, and subscribe to all our social media pages, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and all the other social media pages that we are up and running. Get all the information about the upcoming high holy days, the information about the cookouts that we have, and also to the other, I can say basically what's happening and all that's taking place in the I.S.U.P.K under command of General Yohanna. If you want to see the work that the I.S.U.P.K is doing, go on those pages. You understand? You see all the interviews with all the international media in relation to what we did for our Haitian brothers that no other group and no other people did or would take the risk or take the chance to do for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. All right? So tonight we're going to just dive back into some of the most common Hebrew phrase, right? In this case, most common verbs. And what we're going to do is just really get into that frame of mind to start to use back our original tongue, right? And because of that, it will help us understand who we are as a people. Because all of us have grown and learned another nation's culture that does not belong to us. And because of that, we can never ever fit in. As the proverbial saying, we will say, square peg in wrong hole. You understand? It can never fit. You can try, but everything else and everybody else will go against you because why? You don't belong. You understand? In that area. So tonight, we just go through some very common ones, and these things will be able to help us, use them in our vocabulary, expand our vocabulary, and see some of the common attributes of these Hebrew words. All right, so the first Hebrew word means to perish, right, which is abba. Abba means perish. And as we know, perish is a word that can be used to describe how someone is being dealt with or what actually happened to someone. So in the word perish, in the scriptures, has some meaning. All right, so we'll go into the Blue Letter Bible and get some more context. Right, so we'll read Genesis, right, which, and that food shall be for store to the land against 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt through the famine. Again, Joseph when he was in Egypt, right? As he entered Egypt, he was a slave to an Egyptian, right? An Egyptian called Potiphar, right? From there, Potiphar's wife tried to have sex with him. He refused because he kept on understanding the laws of the Most High, yes, and that it was wrong. Because of that, he was sent to prison. Whilst he was in prison, he interpreted a dream for 2 men who was in prison with him at that time. The dreams were accurate. When he predicted and gave the meanings of those, and because of that, there came a time when where the Egyptian Pharaoh also had a dream, and he was able to interpret that dream, and then from that he got fame and renown for interpreting that dream, and Pharaoh gave him charge, you understand, over Egypt, you understand, and because of that, he was able to store up food for 7 years of famine There are 7 years of plenteous, and then for the other years was 7 years of famine. And with that, he was able to make Egypt great, make Egypt rich, but also he was able to what, secure and keep the nation of Israel in its infancy at that time, right? Where was only a couple of them, you understand, and they were able to keep them in the land of Goshen and be able to give them food and provisions, and they fared very well in the times of famine during that time. So they here now the word perish, right? So back here, right? Right? The word perish is abar, right? So that's perish in the ancient Hebrew, right? The next word is love, which ahab means to love. So ahabiyah is, will go into the context of, or I love you. Ahab means to love. So we have perish, which is abar, love, which is ahab. Ahab. The next word we have here is hostile. Hostile. Now, when somebody is hostile, you understand, it means that somebody is being or seem very aggressive. Usually in context, well, this person began to be hostile against his brother. Right? So if you look in terms of in context of the word hostile, and get the meaning. So hostile. So locking up this. And all these are very important so that we'll be able to understand how to be able to deal. You understand? Because being hostile is a particular spirit. So we have hostile. Of hostile, right, is showing or feeling opposition or dislike, unfriendly. Right? So we should not be what? Hostile to our brother. We shouldn't be hostile to our sister. We shouldn't be hostile to those, you understand, who are our brethren. You understand? There are ways we are to what? Conduct ourselves. You understand? And also, you understand, there are checks and balances in terms of how we have to deal with each other. Now, a brother may, quote unquote, come aggressive at you. Now, there's nothing wrong with a brother defending himself. You understand? If the situation needs be, right? But to be a particular way just for being that sake, it is, or without a cause, I should put it that way, is not something that we practice. Right? So some other meanings is, or similar meanings, of or belonging to a military enemy, right? So like just say, they say like a, so that was just another take, right? Or also, which also may apply, people are very hostile to the idea, right? Or which means opposed or dislike, or maybe in some case aggressive, right? So that is hostile, which is a yab in the ancient Hebrew. Again, this is you have the ancient and then we have just difference between the two. So now we move on to the other word, which is akal. And this is a very common word because it's something we do on a daily basis. To understand this word, it should be very easy to understand and to remember. Akal means to eat, right? Akal. So once you have that word, it just sink into your brain. But akal will be very easy to remember. So again, you can use this in your daily vocabulary. So I'll give you a second take down that. Common words or phrases. Again, support the I.S.U.P.K, pay your tithes, because every cent that is given to the I.S.U.P.K under commanding General Yahanna is used to do the work of the Lord. You understand? The praise and prophets in the I.S.U.P.K Yahanna, we don't scam, we don't do any of those things. Your money goes to what? To the furtherance, to the development of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. You understand? And the perfect example, you understand, is what was done for our brothers, the Haitians, on the Mexican border. You understand? Where we carry food and clothing and sanitary items and everything that they needed when the world neglected our brothers. Right? So pay your tithes. So now we're going to do some more common verbs. Right, the next common one would be to come. Right, so that's right on a few. Understand. Speak. Right, and sacrifice. Right, so these are very, again, common words. Right, so kawa. Right, so kawa. Syrian is ka, wa. Right, so it's kawa. Right, so I'll write them down and then we'll get into them. Then right, so that's Kaiyan, understand. Next one is speak. Speak. Which is Daba. That's Daba. And last one here for now is sacrifice. Kabak. Right, so we have these other four words here. Right, so so kawa. Nice. So the first word is come, which is kawa. Means to come. So if you want to say come over here, you say what? Kawa. Kawa. Which means to come. Which is kawa. So then we have understand, which is Kayan. Kayan. So okay, that's by corrected. Kayan is Bayan. Right. Just Bayan. Means to what? Understand. Understand is very critical. Let's see if we get this in the Blue Letter Bible. So we put in the meaning of understand. Famous passage of scripture. This is Genesis chapter 11. Genesis chapter 11 and verse 7, right? And I will start up probably at verse 6. I think that should be a better one. Another very, very famous passage of scripture, which says, Genesis chapter 11 and verse 6. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined. Right, this story is in relation to the Tower of Babel. Nimrod had a kingdom that brought everybody together who were on the earth at that time. Verse 7 says, go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. Right? So this was the Most High talking to his angels saying, here, these men, what they planning to do, because they spoke one language and mind at that time, they said they were nothing that they imagined to do, they wouldn't be able to do. So they had to go down and what? Confound their language so that they will not what? Understand each other. Right? And to understand, which means to be able to relate. If we cannot relate to each other, right? It's about us having mindset, common views, common issues. So those are the things that someone would definitely need to do. So for instance, understanding the Hebrew, or should I say, when you understand the Hebrew, you will better more understand these scriptures. You'll get to understand the meaning, the culture, the slang. All these are things that blacks, Hispanics, and have to be aware of. Because if you don't understand our language and our customs, then that's what you will misunderstand us. And that happened to us a lot, right? Even when our regular language, something I think they call it phonics. You understand where, or you say there's another word, I think they call it the vernacular. But ebonics in terms of how we speak. Black people speak different to other cultures, way different. And the way our slang is used, especially in the Caribbean, especially in the US, or primarily any place. I want to say black, I'm talking about Hispanics, black, which is so-called Negro, Hispanic, and Native Indians. I'm not talking about Africans. Africans are a totally different race of people. They are not related to us, right? Not because we have dark skin, that means we are Africans. That is something that is terribly misplaced, right? So understanding is very critical in the ancient Hebrew in understanding our culture and our language, right? So the word understanding is bayan. So because we understand the language or we don't understand the language, then we will not be able to speak, or you will be able to speak. The bar is the Hebrew word for speak. Through all the scriptures, you would hear the Most High use this phrase, speak. Very, very common terminology, very common term being used through all the scriptures, especially in the book of Exodus, repeating these phrases. And verse 2 says, speak unto the children of Israel, say, right? And in the Hebrew, they would say as, okay, let me see, to the children of Israel, they would say what? Where the bar, which means to speak. So in the ancient Hebrew, so let me try and get the other part of it, say Leviticus. Right. So Leviticus chapter 11 and verse 2 says, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, these are the beasts which ye shall eat that are on the face of the earth. So this is a very common term, speak unto. Tell them, say, all that has to relate to being oral, all right, being able to express and say something, right? So the Most High always speaking to Moses, say, here, speak unto the children of Israel and do this. Speak unto the children of Israel and do that, because Moses was the one between the Most High and the nation of Israel. So that way we keep on saying, speak unto the children of Israel. Speak. So that is why we always say, speak. So we have the Hebrew, which is the bar, to get the connectors, which is important. So da, bar, right? The bar, the back. So you have the bar, which means to speak or to say something. Now we have the other word, which is sacrifice. Now the word sacrifice, right? That word is used a whole, is used a lot throughout the scriptures, especially in the Old Testament, because in that case, continually, you understand, which would be via whether it be animals or food or provisions, meaning saying of sacrifice also in relation to Israel, right? So continually, the nation of Israel would give a sacrifice unto the Most High via the priest. So we'll go to Leviticus. We're going to get right. So this is Leviticus chapter 7 and verse 11. Right. So let's pull it up here now. In the chapter gave a context of how a man's offering, right? So verse 1 starts and says, just in the context, likewise, this is given a basically a blueprint on how to do with a so-called trespass offering, which means it did something that was a trespass against a particular person. So then there is a sacrifice that needs to be done for the forgiveness of sin at that time, which would use a particular type of sacrifice. Right? And verse 2 says, in the place where they kill the burnt offering, shall they kill the trespass offering. Separate from a regular as compared to a trespass offering. And continues says, and the blood therefore shall he sprinkle round about the altar. And this is the law of the sacrifice of which he shall offer unto the Lord. Now, there are different types of offering or so-called sacrifices. So there were trespass offerings, and then there were what? So the Hebrew word for sacrifice is zabak. Zabak. Zabak, not gabak, but zabak. That is a Hebrew word for sacrifice. Right? So zabak is the Hebrew word for sacrifice. So once you sacrifice and make an offering, you understand, you did a zabak, which means to sacrifice. Context. Pull this up. Right, there were different types of sacrifices. There were sacrifices for strife. You understand? There were sacrifices for the Passover. And you understand? For there would be annual sacrifices. There would be Thanksgiving sacrifices or offerings. So all these, you understand, to the Most High. Sacrifices, the foods, or what was the sacrifice that sacrificed, right? Some of them, and the priests would eat these foods, right? When they're having large feast days, etc., obviously those food will be shared out. You understand? In relation to what was sacrificed to, that was for the priests and for their families. So let's go on to get a few more words. So, there you go. Next one. Okay. Right, so the next Hebrew word is remember. Mhm. Oh, I was looking at that. You guys put that aside. Yeah, I didn't put it. Okay, let's see. Yeah. Right. So the Hebrew word for remember is zakah, which is so zakah Hebrew word for remember zakah. Right, so that is zakah. Now again, the previous one I had before, which was zabak, which means a sacrifice, right? So zabak, right, which means it's the sacrifice. So zabak, zabak, right? So that was the previous one, sacrifice. I just wanted to make sure it was clear, which is zabak. So let's put it back here. Right? And to remember is zakah. Now we have another word, which is to know. So when you want to say I know this or I know that, right? The Hebrew word for know is Yah, the die. Yeah. Right, so that's yadai, means to or know. Know as in not as in know as in not, but know as in knowing. Okay, so you would, in an example would be like, I know my name, or I know this person, or I know that phrase, right? So that would be the context in the word know. So the other word we use is make up for this to go down. Which is yarad. So we have zakah, right? We have sacrifice, which is zabak. We have which is yadai. As I just explained, yadai means to know in terms of knowing, not know as in want something. So yadai, and then we have go down, which means or go down in a pit, which means to go down. Again, all these are common terms, common phrases on a day-to-day basis that we to increase our vocabulary and get back to our history and our culture so that we'll be able not just only to be part of our history, to teach our children. Important for identity, because the East Indians have their identity, the Chinese have their identity, the Syrian have their identity. These people know who they are, and the reason why they know who they are because they have a specific language and a culture. So when the Chinese man talk his Mandarin or is Chinese or what to those people, it's what makes them who they are. Right? That's what gives value. Right? So if you have your own language or your own customs or your own heritage, then you are not valued as it is shown towards blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. They don't value because they see us just as slaves. That is why they have no consideration or understanding when it comes to us speaking to each other or even want to understand our language. They, when we speak to each other, they don't have a clue or they wouldn't want to accept. They always want us to speak like them and for us not to learn or create or have our own language or system or custom because they just don't care about what we are or who we are. All they are concerned about is how we can serve them to their best interest, to their liking. All right, so we just do a few more. Right, so we have another one that's not that famous, but it is of common language now, but it was very common in times past. Right, this one, the word means so we'll put a meaning up for it as well. Means in the aspect of error, right? So is ka, ta, a. So ka, ta, a. Ka, ta, a. Right, so that means the other word we have here is think. Shall. Shall. The other word here is unclean. Or to be unclean. A. A. Right, and we have one more. This one. Touch, which is nagai or nagai. Right, so nagai, which is right. So we have these words here now. So the first word is era or now if you pull up the context of now to be an or to was a word used in the scriptures, right? So we could use Psalm 119 and 2, so like 119 and 21, which says, Thou hast rebuked the proud that are cursed, which do err from thy commandments. Now when you look up means what? To go astray or to move away or move aside. You understand, from what they were supposed to do before. Right? So that is means to move away, to stray, to swerve, to go against, to be led astray. Right? That word means to err or to err. The children of Israel continue to err by what? Not doing them, or to move away from the commandments that they were doing at the time. You understand? And time again, you would always see where the nation of Israel would do or break the commandments, and for their error or for their error, the Most High will what? Punish. Error, in this case, is kata. Now, the next word is think, which is chashab. Right? So chashab means to think. About what you're doing tomorrow. You will think about what you're going to do tonight. Right? So in that context, or to think about what you're doing, the word for think is chashab. Right? Chashab. Right? The tarat is not ka, like it's K-A, but ka. That's how it's pronounced. Chashab, which means to think. Is to be or be unclean, right? Being unclean, there are many different ways you can be unclean, right? For a woman, is her during her menstrual cycle. For men also, as if they have some uncleanness, whether they have some run-ins or some cuts, right? There were very specific rules in dealing or in terms of being unclean or dealing with somebody who is unclean, right? And primarily those things was instituted, right, by the nation of Israel, no other group, no other people. Because we had very strict hygiene laws, right? Separated in the clean and the unclean. And all this was to keep us above all other nations on the face of the earth. Because we were the first to institute, you understand? Where you had to be separated these particular issues. And that was what among the nation of Israel, which was very critical. Understand? So when it comes to quarantine, you talk about coronavirus and you had to stay in quarantine. We were doing that way before. Instituted as part of our culture to quarantine oneself or a particular person or a particular thing if it shows different types of character. Label it unclean. Right? Next thing, next word is touch. So the thing that was unclean, right? Most of the times they were not supposed to touch. And if for some reason you had to touch it, there was specific had to do in terms of washing and destroying certain things that you have touched, again to what? Prevent. So if a man moved some dead animal, or if he touched some dead animal, he would what? Have to bathe, and he would be unclean until the evening. So if a man also probably touch his wife if she's on a flower, or touch something that she sat on or lay on, right? He would have to what? Wash himself, and he would be unclean until the evening or until the specified time that was given throughout the scriptures. And again, all these things were given so that the nation of Israel would once again all other nations. And the Hebrew word for touch, nagai, that is the Hebrew word for touch. Right, so we go hold up on this here tonight. I.S.U.P.K under commanding General Yahanna, all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. We are seeing what is taking place through all the planet. All the signs are clear. Seeing nation rising up against nation. We're seeing pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places. We're seeing volcanoes, everything that the scriptures talk about. So this is for the nation of Israel. Practice what? Zephaniah 2:1, right? Which says, gather ourselves together. Gather, O nation not desire. And that what blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are to be doing at this time, and not what? Following all the ways of the heathen that we want to follow Christmas, Easter, and every other that does not pertain, you understand, the culture or pertain to what the most as a people. All right, so with that, I'll pass the class on to Priest and Officer Michael. Yeah, this was right. Come on.
This is the I.S.U.P.K security announcements. We are the I.S.U.P.K out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commandant General Yahanna. New rules for brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to share themselves of the world. After 6 months, if your brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to the brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother or sister will court each other. After the 6-month period, the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. You can find this in Numbers chapter 18 and verse 21 and Malachi chapter 3 verses 8 to 10. Means tenth in the Hebrew and is pronounced Maisra. 10% of any increase the Lord gives you, you give to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like to give. Upcoming Holy Convocation. The upcoming Holy Convocation is the Feast of Dedication, also known as Hakanaka, which is the 25th day of the 9th month by the space of 8 days, which will be Sunday, the 28th November 2021. You can find this in 1 Maccabees chapter 4, verses 52 to 61. Remind Archeum and Aquatium to check on social media such as isupk.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so on for I.S.U.P.K events and materials. If a brother wants to be a trooper in the school, then he's to start wearing all black, which includes black boots, like shirt, like headbands or scarf, and with that we say Imadium. We're going to turn again the east and begin the Lord's Prayer in the Hebrew. Abanawa. Shabbat Shemayim. Qadash. Ayah. Shamka. Yahweh. Malakotka. Taba'a. Ratazaka,
Zaka,
Haya,
Aya,
Aisha,
Aisha,
Barataza,
Barataza,
Kawa,
Kawa,
Haya,
Aya,
Bashamaya,
Bashamaya,
Nathana,
Tanana,
Lakam,
Lakam,
Ka,
Ka,
Yawam,
Yawam,
Wasalakna,
Wasalakna,
Kawawatna,
Kawawatna,
Kasalakna,
Kasalakna,
Kawawatna,
Kawawatna,
Wala'a,
Wala'a,
Tabianawa,
Tabianawa,
Wanasayawan,
Wanasayawan,
Bal,
Bal,
Awashina,
Awashina,
Mayan,
Mayan,
Rai,
Rai,
Kaya,
Kaya,
Laka,
Laka,
Amalakwa,
Malakwa,
Wahala,
Wa'ala,
Wataparat,
Tapara,
Iwalamian,
Iwalami,
Aman.
Aman. In the English now we say, Our Father,
Our Father,
which art in heaven,
which art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name.
hallowed be thy name.
Salaki. Thy kingdom come,
Thy kingdom
thy
come,
will be done,
thy will be done
in earth,
in earth
as it is in heaven.
as it is in heaven.
Give us this day,
Give us this day
our daily bread,
our daily bread,
and forgive us, our debts,
our debts,
as we forgive
as we forgive
our debtors,
our debtors,
and lead us not
and lead us not
into temptation,
into temptation,
but deliver us
from
evil.
from evil.
For thine is the
For
kingdom,
thine is the kingdom,
and the power,
and the power,
and the glory,
and the glory,
forever.
forever.
So be it.
So be it. Sir, men of Israel, let's give the teacher a one quick salute. A Madam Shabbat, a Mario, Barak. How about Shamir Shabakata?
How about Shemir Shabakata?
Yadyan Mata, class dismissed.